Hello and welcome to News Central Now. I'm Darshan Usman. The top stories at this hour. House of Representatives halts implementation of cybercrime levy. Former Nigeria's aviation minister Hadi Sirika granted bail over alleged 2.5 billion naira fraud. 7 villagers killed in deadly rebel attack in DR Congo. Details in a moment. We begin in Nigeria's Niger Delta, where Governor Siminalayi Fubara on Thursday stormed the Rivers State House of Assembly quarters amid the political crisis rocking the state. There was tight security around the area as the Rivers State governor visited the quarters where the Martin Amawule-led legislators meet. Now, the governor said he was at the place as the governor of the state as he took a 3-minute walk around the premises before leaving. His visit came on the heels of a fresh crisis in the Rivers State House of Assembly. Some lawmakers loyal to the governor had on Wednesday elected the member representing the Boni constituency, Victor Okojombo, as their speaker. Now, joining me on the news to discuss this further is former special advisor to former governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, Opunabo Inko-Tariah. Hello, Inko-Tariah. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure and good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
All right, so we understand that the governor has stormed the state's House of Assembly. Do you sense tension rising in the state?
Well, why the governor is at the state or was at the State House of Assembly is unbeknownst. I mean, to me, I'm not quite aware of reasons for going to the assembly, but he's the governor of the state and reserves the right to visit anywhere he deems fit and necessary. On the issue of tension in the state, of course, we all know that there are relentless efforts by minions. I'm talking of those that are loyal to the FCT minister to incite intifada in the state. That is crisis, uprising, insurrection in the state. And don't forget that the minister had said, boasted that he was going to make the state ungovernable, even though the impeachment wasn't going to work. So there are relentless efforts to ensure that the state remains ungovernable. But we Rivers people are also hell-bent to ensure that they don't succeed in their bid to make the state ungovernable for the governor.
All right, now, there doesn't seem to be any clarity as to where the election that produced Okojombo was held or members of the assembly that elected him. Now, as an active politician, or if I should say a concerned citizen, do you know any of the details?
Well, I'm not seized of the facts, but let us also not forget. Sorry, are you done?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Are you done? Okay. I'm not seized of the facts, but let us also not forget that these are legislative matters, and it is within the virus, the powers of the House to elect members. We have just about 3 or 4 members of the House, and in the last 1 year or thereabout, not let me not say 1 year, say a few months ago, the former speaker defected to the APC, and you are also aware of the law on defection. If there is no crisis in the party, or if the parties don't meld and you defect, you've automatically lost your seat. It's self-executory. And so the House at a point was rudderless. There was no speaker, and that's why when they keep talking of the laws, they keep talking of amendment and so on. It's just funny. It's flip-flambery because they don't even have the locus to talk of making laws for the river states. And so the other 3 legislators probably would have felt, well, we cannot continue. The governor cannot appoint fresh commissioners. There are certain things that he cannot do without the imprimatur of the House of Assembly. And this is hampering government. You know what I mean. And so it is on that strength, I believe, these lawmakers would have resolved to ensure that they have a speaker for the smooth running of the House, for the smooth operation of the House. Because by virtue of the defection of these other 26 or 27 members or thereabout, which including the Speaker of the House, the former Speaker of the House of Assembly, that's Martin Amewule, there was no speaker. And don't forget that Edison here, who was recognized by a court in Port Harcourt, the Federal High Court, the Court of Competent Decision, also resigned and is now the chief of staff to the governor. So you need a speaker. You need a speaker, and that's why probably they elected Okojumbo, who is now the new speaker of the Rivers State House of Assembly.
All right, now looking at how the governor surprised them during the meeting, can you say that this development...
Looking at how the governor did what?
Surprised them during the meeting. He showed up. Can you say that the development might be a response to the opposition APC's directive to the 27 assembly members to impeach Governor Fubara?
You know, like I just said here, I mean, this issue of response to the is neither here nor there because they don't even have the locus. They are not members of the House, they are just imposters. So who is going to commence impeachment proceeding? That's the question. That's the issue. That's a conundrum. By virtue of the defection, you know, even when the governor signed that 8-point agenda, some of us excoriated him because Mr. President is not above the law. Mr. Governor is not above the law. It's like the governor going to sign the sale of government house to somebody, and you think we're going to keep quiet. We're not going to keep quiet. So whether Mr. President says allow them to return or not, it's immaterial because they are decided cases, and it's also a constitutional matter. So the issue of calling on the 27 or 26 lawmakers to impeach the governor is neither here nor there. It's free-flammery. I mean, it's far from eclipse of reason and poverty of logic because they are not members of the House as we speak. Even the issue, they say the matter is even in court. I mean, the law is self-executory. It says immediately you defect, save these two reasons. Once you defect, you have lost your seat unless you have crisis in the party and there was no schism in the party. Don't forget the first time they say Siminalayi, because the matter he had with somebody when he wanted to contest for the governorship of his state. That is no crisis in the party. Then the next one, they came up with the most reasonable reason that they defected because of President Tinubu's style of leadership. I mean, these are not known in law. Yes. On what grounds are they defected? The grounds for defection is well spelled out. It's lucid. So from the day they defected, they are no longer members of the House of Assembly. The issue of going to court is not even necessary. It's not even necessary because you even have a Supreme Court judgment on it. You're going to court for the Supreme Court to reverse itself for what? Or unless you want to, from Supreme Court, you want to go to heaven to appeal to God. So it's unnecessary. So the whole essence is just to instigate crisis in the state. That's the whole essence. They cease to be members of the House of Assembly long ago, from the very day they defected.
Is there an end in sight for this crisis, enough for tangible governance to be felt?
It is the earnest wish of Rivers persons to see the cessation of hostilities. And I also strongly believe that it's also the earnest wish of the governor to ensure the end of this crisis. Well, you see, we don't know why the use of wicked faction is relishing the crisis that is going on in the state. Why they revel in it? Simply because you have a misunderstanding with the governor, you want to make the state ungovernable. You know, he kept vaunting left, right, and center. I bought funds for all of them. That in itself is criminal. Whose money did you use to buy the funds for everybody? Is that democracy? That is antithetical to democratic practice and principles. How can you buy funds for everybody? You can't vaunt it. You can say, I kept in there. You can, you know, so because of there's this bile, there's this anger in him that because the governor has refused to capitulate, the governor has refused to put his own interests above the interests of the state. He's now angry he wants to ensure that you have a crisis in the state so that the state will be ungovernable for Governor Siminalayi Fubara. But we are not going to accept that. We are going to resist it.
All right, well, thank you so much.
If you talk of, but let me say one thing. Why you also have the new Speaker of the House of Assembly, like I told you, there are certain decisions that must come from the House of Assembly. There are certain things that, permissions that must be granted by the House of Assembly. Like, for example, the appointment of commissioners. He has not appointed fresh commissioners since this whole thing started. So you need the House of Assembly to function. And without a speaker, how will the House of Assembly function? So they need a new speaker, and that's how the speaker emerged. He's willing to reach accommodation. He has said it, that there is nothing that is too much for, no price that is too much for peace. He's willing, but these other ones are not willing. And that is the problem we're having in the state.
Well, let's hope that, an end to the crisis is found soon enough. Thank you so much.
It will be in the interest of everybody.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for joining us and speaking to us on this. Meanwhile, the newly elected Speaker of the Rivers House of Assembly, Victor Okojumbo, has called on the executive and the judiciary, as well as the public, to disregard every law enacted by the Amaule-led Assembly. In his acceptance speech as the new Speaker of the Assembly, Okojumbo described the purported law as an exercise in futility. The new Speaker thanked the members for electing him sequel to the resignation of the former Speaker, Edison Ehe. The emergence of Okojumbo came just 48 hours after Governor Fubara declared that the 27 members who defected from the PDP to the APC in 2023 were no longer recognized as legislators. He becomes the third Speaker under the current administration after Edison Ehe and Martin Emahule.
I want to thank you, distinguished honorable members, for electing me as the new Speaker, pursuant to the resignation of Right Honorable Edison Ogbonge Ehe. All laws, plenary sections, and actions taken by the illegal House are hereby declared void and a nullity in the eyes of the law by virtue of the judgment of Lord Denning in the celebrated case of McFoy versus UAC 1961. Lord Denning held in that case that you cannot put something on nothing and expect it to stand. The executive arm, the judiciary, and the general public are hereby called upon to disregard every purported laws enacted by the illegal assembly, as they all amount to nothing and they are exercised in futility.
Members of the House of Representatives on Thursday asked the Central Bank of Nigeria to withdraw the circular directing financial institutions to commence implementation of the 0.5% cybersecurity levy, describing it as ambiguous. The development was in response to a motion on the urgent need to halt and modify the implementation of the cybersecurity levy moved by Honorable Kingsley Chinda. Now, according to the Green House, the CBN is to withdraw the initial circular and issue a more understandable one. Honorable Chinda had drawn the attention of the House to multiple interpretations of the CBN directive against the specification in the Cybersecurity Act. The House then expressed worry that the Act would be implemented in error if immediate steps were not taken to address the concerns around the interpretation of the CBN directive and the Cybersecurity Act. The House of Representatives have resolved to investigate the procurement process of the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. Now, this followed the adoption of a motion of urgent national importance moved by Austin Achado during plenary on Thursday. Moving the motion, Achado maintained that the contract award did not follow due process and did not get approval from the National Assembly. However, in its resolution, the House referred the matter to its committees on procurement and works. A federal high court in Abuja, the capital of Nigeria, has granted 100 million naira bail to a former Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, his daughter, and 2 others. They are being tried over an alleged fraud to the tune of 2.7 billion naira. Now, according to the court, they are also to provide 2 shorties who must have landed properties in Abuja. The court also restricted the defendants from traveling abroad without its permission. The trial will commence on the 10th, 11th, and 20th of June. Counsel to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Rotimi Jacob, spoke on the bail conditions granted by the court.
One of the 2 cases filed against the former minister. So the first one is taken before his lordship here. So we are going to contend for the other one in another date. So, but the bill is at the discretion of the court. So it's for the court to decide whether it is adequate or not. So a counsel in his own right cannot criticize the judge whether the conditions are liberal or high or low, but I think it is fair. Yes, thank you. Well, there are other issues that were introduced, like the Nigerian Airways with Ethiopia something, which we added to it. So it was not there originally, but Nigerian Air matter is there are 2 counts on it. That's why we amended it. On condition that one of the surety must own property in Abuja and must deposit some money out or bond and all those things. So I don't think it's strenuous. It's a condition that is unfair. It's very fair.
And to further discuss this, I'm joined by a lawyer, Osigwe Ahmed Momo. Hello, Osigwe. Thank you so much for joining me at this time. All right, Osigwe, if you can hear me, how significant is the role of intent in proving corruption charges in this case? You know, particularly regarding Sirika's alleged fraudulent awarding of contracts to family members and associates. We'll try to reconnect with Osigwe. Now, a recent poll report released by international polling agency, the NOI, polls has confirmed earlier reports indicating that over 6 billion naira was paid in ransom between July 2021 and June 2022. The report indicates that majority of the cases of kidnapping in the country occurs in the northern region, while many attribute the cause of kidnapping to the lack of jobs and poor economic situation in the country. Ahmed reports.
The findings released by the NOI polls saw 6 out of 10 adult Nigerians say government is not doing enough to curb the menace of kidnapping in the country. The NOI poll says that the polls sampled the opinion of citizens to know what they think are the prevalence of kidnapping and what can be done to reduce insecurity where they live.
One of the things that we tried to do was to ask people if they feel the prevalence of kidnapping is high in their locality, again specifically in their locality. And we had about 53% of Nigerians that said that the prevalence of kidnapping was high. And then we went further to ask whether they know specifically, personally, someone that has been kidnapped within the past 1 year.
28% believe that the solution is tackling insecurity. So the perception of Nigerians made available to government, which is something that gives a lot of value to this work that NOI poll does, is that tackling insecurity is the direct solution to the national food crisis that we have.
The poll results, however, revealed that majority of the cases of kidnapping in the country occur in the north, with the North Central Zone accounting for the highest number of respondents who decried the prevalence of the menace. Security experts here think this is a worrisome situation.
When you look at the region where the major concerns are, either the North Central, the Northeast, or the Northwest, these are a big part of the country where we're talking about agriculture. And so if the people in those regions can no longer go to farm and live a normal life, then we're in trouble.
If we go deeper into this threat factor, kidnap for ransom, at least based on the findings by Beacon Consulting, 80% of the incidents that we're monitoring are happening in the northern part of the country. So if we're able to improve the security situation, reduce kidnap for ransom in the northern part of the country, we would have reduced 80% of the prevalence.
While citizens give differing views on the reasons for kidnapping, however, experts here want their issues addressed.
When we asked people what they think were the main causes of the increase in kidnapping, the major thing that they pointed out to was unemployment, and unemployment was one of the main drivers, and consequently the recommendation was for government to fix the economy, improve, create jobs and that. But there was just a few mention of community policing as one of the instances.
With a poll indicating that about 56% of adult Nigerians believe that not enough is being done to curb the menace, clearly government has much work to do to change public perception of its efforts. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
News Central now returns after the break. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now, residents of Agungi in the Lekki area of Lagos State are calling on the Lagos State government to help put an end to the flooding problems that have bedeviled the community for almost 2 decades. Now, according to the residents, once it rains, every human and business activity in the axis is put on hold while they battle getting the filthy waters out of their respective homes and stalls every year. News Central's Adeshawa Odushoga was there and filed this report.
School students living in The rains have barely started in Lagos, Nigeria, and one would not expect to hear cases of flooding just yet, as the weather is still predominantly hot. But the reverse is the case here. This land you see here is never dry. For the past 15 years, this has been the reality of residents, businesses, school students living in Agungi area of Lekki, Lagos State. Now, they say that it doesn't matter whether it rains or not, this water remains there for as long as you can imagine, and sometimes it lasts for even 1 year until the next rainy season. About 100 meters of the entire stretch of the road is often covered with dirty greenish water with a very awful smell, obviously unsafe for the skin, especially the feet of people walking in it.
Anytime it rains, the rain doesn't necessarily need to be heavy, but you will see that the water flows out from the drainages and it blocks the whole, everywhere is flooded.
This road connects other communities like Ajiro and even other prominent and expensive estates like the Chevron Estate, among others. Some residents and even school children can be seen walking in the filthy water with no other option to connect to other parts of the street, risking a possible skin infection. When asked, they say they are left with no choice.
It has been over 15 years and the kings know. There was a church member of mine that she normally walks inside the water. So I discovered yesterday she did not come to work. Part of her toes are cutting off.
However, when it rains and the water becomes impossible to walk or drive through, students cannot go to school, businesses are shut down, and residents are stuck indoors until the water subsides.
Although I don't like coming here, but if I get driven here, if you pay me money that I want, I will just manage to come. But if you don't pay me, in fact, I will even charge you so that you will not accept, so that I will not come because I don't like coming to the place. Whenever there is much rain, students from here don't come to school, except students coming from this side.
Residents and businesses in Agungi are calling on the government, especially the Ministry of Environment, to find a lasting solution to these perennial challenges to make Agungi a convenient residence to live in and a better environment for businesses to thrive. In Lagos for News Central, Adeshawa Odushoga.
Thank you, Adeshawa. Now, journalists and concerned citizens on Thursday stormed Force Headquarters Abuja to protest against the continued detention of a journalist with the Foundation of Investigative Journalism, that's FIJ, Daniel Ojukwu. The protest at the police headquarters followed the continuous detention of Ojukwu for 9 days, as well as the silence of the police leadership on the matter. Prominent Nigerians like the Revolution Now convener, Omoyele Sowore, human rights activist Buki Shonibare, and other media practitioners led the protest at the entrance of the police complex. The activists demanded immediate release of Ojukwu, saying his continued detention was equivalent to an extrajudicial trial and punishment. In October 2023, Ojukwu had reported how the then Senior Special Assistant on Sustainable Development Goals to the President, Adejoke Orelope Adefulure, paid 147.1 million naira to an account traced to ANCZanu Global Ventures, an Abuja-based restaurant, for the construction of classrooms.
We unequivocally condemn Daniel Ojukwu's abduction and unlawful detention as unconstitutional, illegal, immoral, and unbecoming of a country that claims to practice democracy. We maintain that for Nigeria to claim its status as the continent's largest democracy, the institutions and law enforcement agencies must uphold established standards and procedures consistent with democratic norms.
Somebody used 147 million naira to implement a project from government funds, from the funds which are from the taxes of Nigerians. Daniel has just taken that information and written and validated that information that the project that was implemented is nowhere to be found. But, you know, he's been in prison for that purpose. So the question is, what has he done to demand that he's a criminal? So he doesn't need a good lawyer. We are saying charge him to court, charge him for whatever he has done, and let's see if we will not bring a good lawyer. So that's the situation.
I have heard you and I have heard all your demands. This will be communicated to the appropriate authorities, and I assure you that our Inspector General of Police will definitely take a step towards the liberation of Daniel Ojukwu. Or if it means charging him, it will be done so accordingly. We'll communicate to them.
Now let's move to health matters, where the Nigeria Red Cross says that in 2024 alone, over 30 million citizens will suffer from hunger. The Red Cross made this known while marking the World Red Cross Day in Abuja, calling on citizens and governments to extend a hand of support to those desperately in need of aid. Ahmed reports.
The Nigeria Red Cross joined the international community to mark the World Red Cross Day. The Red Cross says that with conflicts and disasters increasing worldwide, the work of its volunteers is already cut out for them.
Nigerian society remains the #1 volunteer organization in this country in alleviating the suffering of the vulnerable people wherever it may be found. Our network of volunteers span across the 774 local governments of this country in the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. We have over 800,000, nearly 1 million volunteer network in this country.
Together with the Nigerian Red Cross Society, the International Committee of the Red Cross work in the Northeast to reconnect families separated due to the conflict, promote health and hygiene, best practices, and train mothers and caregivers to identify malnutrition and respond to it.
We've been working in Nigeria with Nigerians for over 100 years now, as you heard, since 1917. So we look together with the Nigerian Red Cross, we look back at a long partnership, and we're committed to remain in Nigeria.
It adds that the World Red Cross Day presents an opportunity to inflect and consider the well-being of its volunteers.
You cannot do very well if the hand feeding the sick is also sick. Then the ability to handle it will be impossible. And therefore, keeping humanity alive makes us look at our volunteers of various cadres, including the likes of me standing here, that while you are using them to take care of bad situations, let us also see how we can also take care of them to be alive in order to take care of those we need to be alive.
The Red Cross also raised an alarm over the projected number of vulnerable Nigerians that will suffer from hunger in 2024, saying there is a need to prepare to reach out to them.
This year, more than 30 million people are going to be hungry in this country. Let me repeat that. 30 million people are going to be hungry in this country. But there are 207 or 170 million other Nigerians that can help other Nigerians. Why are we not standing up? We must and we should. And let's show the rest of the world that the Nigerians do believe in humanity and are keeping it alive.
The Red Cross called on citizens, private and public organizations, including the federal and state governments, to support humanitarian efforts aimed at reaching out to the poor and needy, desperately in need of aid. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadin Uyi.
Coming up, several injured after Boeing plane leaves runway in Senegal. We'll bring you details after the break. Welcome back. A Boeing passenger plane came off the runway during takeoff in Senegal on Thursday, injuring 11 people and shutting down the international airport near the capital, Dakar, for almost 12 hours. The aircraft, an Air Senegal flight chartered by privately owned Transair, was carrying 78 passengers and headed to the Malian capital, Bamako. The incident comes with Air Senegal having already endured months of criticism, with passengers regularly complaining about delays to domestic and international flights. Thursday's incident came a day after a Boeing 767 FedEx cargo plane touched down at Istanbul airport without its front landing gear, which failed to open, though nobody was hurt. Zimbabwe ruling party ZANU PF says it is willing to help its counterpart, South Africa's ruling party, the African National Congress, to push for votes in the upcoming elections. Now, speaking to the media, ZANU PF Secretary General Obert Mpofu said they have also been invited to be a part of observer missions during the election on the 29th of May. ZANU-PF says it hopes the election in South Africa will be conducted following SADC rules. South Africa will be going to the polls on the 29th of May 2024. Joining me on the news to discuss this is Dr. Webster Zambara from the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. Hello, Doctor. Thank you so much for joining us at this time.
Greetings and greetings to your viewers. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. All right, so how do you interpret the decision of the ANC to invite ZANU-PF to be a part of the observer mission in the upcoming election, despite Zimbabwe's history of not holding fair and free elections?
Well, the relations between the African National Congress and ZANU-PF go as far back as the liberation struggle. And I think one should be aware of the fact that in Southern Africa, the liberation movement parties actually have got a certain relationship which is formal, in which they respect each other, they support each other, and this is beyond just ANC and ZANU-PF. It includes Frelimo of Mozambique, it includes SWAPO of Namibia, it also includes Chama Pinduzi in Tanzania, and UNIP in Zambia. Of these, only UNIP in Zambia has lost power, and that has actually brought them more together to the effect that they help each other almost every time. In fact, ANC is the oldest political party on the continent, and parties like ZANU-PF are actually offshoots of ANC. Now look at it. Zimbabwe had elections that were marred by irregularities only in August. But if you look at the reaction of the African National Congress to that, it was one of the first institutions and governments to congratulate ZANU-PF. And if you look at the inauguration of President Mnangagwa, South Africa has had the most powerful delegation comprising of President Ramaphosa, Minister of Foreign Affairs Daledi Pandor, and the ANC leadership, including Secretary General Fikile Mbalula. And they openly declared that their support is with ZANU-PF. So now that elections are coming in 20 days here, and the ANC, having been in power for 30 years since 1994, is facing serious challenges not only from the opposition, but from other offshoots from itself. And it is getting support, obviously, from its sister parties, including ZANU-PF. So this is not a surprise at all, and should be read in the face of liberation movements supporting each other, and it has been happening over the years.
Okay. Now, but what message does it send, when a party like ZANU-PF, known for allegedly stealing elections, is being asked to help monitor the electoral process in another country?
Well, I think in cases of desperation, parties like ANC would want support from anyone. And the issue of ZANU-PF's legitimacy, even if one would question it, as long as the Southern African Development Community accepted the elections results and Mnangagwa is the sitting president, they would look at it as inviting a legitimately elected government and a sister liberation party. One would look at it also perhaps historically. When President Mugabe, the late Mugabe, was rigging elections in 2008, President Mbeki, then president of South Africa, went on to, in fact, deny when the United Nations Security Council was putting Zimbabwe on the agenda. South Africa stood firm and said there's no crisis in Zimbabwe, but we all know that there was a crisis. So this relationship is one that sometimes is, if need be, seems to look aside when you look
yes,
at,
all right. So talking about the relationship, Doctor, how do you see the relationship between the ANC and ZANU-PF evolving as a result of this decision, and what implications might it have for future elections in both countries?
That is probably the biggest question in terms of how the ANC is going to conduct itself, because if it conducts itself in the way that ZANU-PF does elections across the Limpopo River, the ANC risks the reputation that South Africa has as a doyen of democracy, as a leader of democracy, not only in Southern Africa, but in Africa as a whole. So we want to see with curiosity what role ZANU-PF involvement would entail. Because some of these things, the institutions in South Africa, including the Electoral Commission in South Africa and many other institutions, are so solid that the influence of ZANU-PF will be very minimal, if anything. However, like I said before, these are sister parties that look at themselves as under attack, often looking at themselves as fighting regime change agenda and looking at themselves as having to defend the liberation struggle, winning the liberation struggle against colonialism and apartheid. But mark my words, I do not think that ZANU-PF will be a big determinant, because South Africa's democracy is so institutionalized that a foreign party like ZANU-PF will have very little in terms of influencing the outcome of the vote.
All right, now, Doctor, just before we go quickly, considering that many Zimbabweans have fled their country to seek economic opportunities in South Africa due to hardships, caused by the ZANU-PF regime, even though you said it won't be a major determinant in the South African elections, how might this decision impact the perceptions of Zimbabweans living in South Africa?
Well, considering that issues of xenophobic violence are quite prevalent, and some smaller political parties are actually campaigning against foreigners, especially not those that are not registered or regularized. They are parties like, I can cite the party led by the former mayor of Joburg, who campaigns Action South Africa, as well as the other party led by this former mayor also of a small town here in Western Cape. Those parties are quite strict in terms of saying foreigners must go away. Now, if they see a foreign political party which is implicated in messing up Zimbabwe politically and economically to the effect that Zimbabwe is going to come to South Africa, they will then have a local stand to say Zimbabweans should still go away because of the interference now coming politically. Already, the relations are quite frosty when it comes to xenophobia targeting Zimbabweans. So it's not something that the ANC should be proud of, to be inviting ZANU-PF in the political processes in South Africa in the face of tensions that exist regarding Zimbabweans who are living in South Africa against some sections of society that are quite xenophobic and would like to see Zimbabweans going back home.
All right, well, thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us and taking time to speak to us on this. Thank you.
Thanks for having me again.
Now let's head to Central Africa, where 7 villagers were killed and 6 others injured in an attack blamed on the M23 rebel group on Wednesday in South Kivu province, according to local officials. Now, the attack comes amid reports of clashes near Sake, a strategic town in neighboring North Kivu. The M23 rebels, led by Tutsis, have gained control of significant territory in North Kivu over the past 2 years and appear to be expanding their operations. This renewed conflict comes after 8 years of relative peace. The M23 rebels re-emerged in late 2021 and have since tightened their grip around Goma, North Kivu's capital. The Democratic Republic of Congo accuses neighboring Rwanda of backing the M23, a claim Rwanda denies. In business, the Lagos State Consumer Protection Agency, LASCOPA, and the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission have partnered to bolster consumer rights protection in Lagos. During a recent visit, General Manager LASCOPA to visit by LASCOPA, General Manager to FCCP headquarters in Abuja, it was revealed that joint inspections of supermarkets and trading outlets will be conducted. Collaboration is deemed crucial to safeguard the interests of Nigeria's 200 million consumers, especially in the face of challenges like price gouging. Now, Lagos, as the country's economic hub, must feel the Commission's impact. In the coming week, a joint enforcement operation will take place in Lagos, focusing on issues like falsehood and misleading practices. The synergy between FCCPC and LASCOPA will enhance consumer protection, ensuring redress for any infractions encountered in the marketplace. In the world of sports, Women's Africa Cup of Nations WAFCON champions Banyana of South Africa will play 2 away international friendly matches against Senegal during the FIFA break in the coming weeks. Coach Desiree Ellis Chargers will face the West Africans in their home ground on 31st May and on 4th June 2024. The next WAFCON will be held in Morocco by the dates of the start of the Banyana's defense of their continental title are yet to be announced. The final 23-player squad for the away international friendlies against Senegal will be announced in the coming days. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our major stories. We told you that House of Representatives halts implementation of cybercrime levy. We also told you that former Nigeria's aviation minister, Hadi Sirika, granted bail over alleged 2.5 billion naira fraud. Finally, you heard that 7 villagers killed in deadly rebel attack in DR Congo. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times Channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Usman.